So a lot's happened since you first published Grain Brain, so I'm guessing, so you still don't like gluten, huh?
Yeah, well, gluten and carbs and sugar, I mean, who knew that we shouldn't be eating sugar, shouldn't be eating carbs, and how incredible it was that there was just this beautiful validation just this past week announced in the New York Times that it turns out that this dietary recommendation that we should eat a lot of carbs and sugar only for the past 30 years was finally, we realized what was going on behind that. So, great.
So what has changed? Talk to me about what else has changed, you know, with the research.
Well, I think the big news here, and I know that many of you are deeply interested in this, and that is the fundamental role of the gut bacteria, the microbiome, in terms of making our neurotransmitters, making vitamins, regulating inflammation within our bodies, the cornerstone of really every chronic degenerative condition that we suffer and even aging. So that is really what's revolutionary, that we recognize that to be resilient and to be robust, we have to embrace diversity within the gut bacteria. We have to live our lives in such a way that we don't compromise this diversity, this God-given diversity of the bugs that live within us.
So where does gluten fit in the diversity?
So gluten, in terms of current sciences, we have our talk today.
Yep.
I'm not going to say that it represents a significant threat to the microbiome, but when you look at recent work from Harvard, what we do see that a protein found in gluten called gliadin actually leads to, I'm going to get a little technical here, but stay with me. You guys are up for it. We're all coffeed up. Leads to increased gut permeability.
Yep.
And it happens not just in the 1% of those of us who have celiac disease or the 30% who may have non-celiac gluten sensitivity, but what the Harvard researchers published last year was that 100% of humans increase their gut leakiness when they are exposed to gliadin, a protein found in gluten. Why is that an issue? It's an issue because when your gut is permeable, that is what instigates inflammation from top to bottom.
So why is inflammation so terrible?
Inflammation sets into process a cascade of events that ultimately leads to the activation of damaging chemicals called free radicals. So if you want to increase the damage to your cells, to your body fat, to even your DNA, you open the door for inflammation. You change your diet in such a way that you're eating more sugar, you're eating less fiber, you're taking the antibiotics, you're taking the proton pump inhibiting drugs that change your microbiome. And that's what leads to gut permeability, and it's really very, very straightforward. And, you know, 5 years ago, we didn't know this as much. In fact, more than about 90% of all the literature dealing with the microbiome and this notion of inflammation has only been published just in the past 5 years. So why didn't you know about this 10 years ago or when I was in medical school? You know, back when I was in medical school, when our textbooks were written on papyrus, we didn't know that brain cells could regenerate. Well, that whole notion of neurogenesis, growing new brain cells, was completely, no one ever talked about it because it didn't exist in humans, and now we embrace that. Back then, we were functioning on what's called the germ theory, that all germs are bad. Well, almost all germs, Jason, in your body are here to help you, and they surround you. You know, it's not just the microbiome in your gut, but surrounding you is a 3-foot cloud of bacteria.
That makes me feel great. Thank you.
But think about this.
You trying to tell me something, doctor?
All of us. Think about this. The person sitting next to you. We are communicating information by breathing in the microbiomes of people sitting near us or when we're in close contact with people. That's a good thing. Why? Because it's giving you information. That's how we have to look at the microbiome now, as giving us information. That's why when a baby is born and passes through the vaginal birth canal, that process is transmitting information to that baby.
So gluten equals gut permeability equals inflammation, and
Simple
that
enough.
is connected to every disease.
That's connected to Alzheimer's. It's connected to coronary artery disease, diabetes, cancer, skin inflammation, joint inflammation. All begins at the level of the gut, at the one cell layer of the gut that mediates, that separates the inside of your gut from the rest of your body. We've got to do everything we can to preserve that one small layer called epithelium.
So I'm going to move on to sugar. Good, bad?
We're moving on to sugar. Let's move off sugar. I did a Facebook Live the other day, and as the questions were coming in, it was, what about honey? What about maple syrup? And, you know, I don't care, with all due respect, if your honey is made by bees that live on an ashram, that meditate twice a day. It doesn't matter. It's sugar. Got to get over it. You got to get over it. And the less you give into that, the less you're going to really want to be eating sugar day in and day out. It's sugar. We've never, when I say never, I don't mean in the last 10,000 years. I mean in 2.4 million years, we didn't have sugar. The only time we had sweet was in the late summer and the early fall. Why? The fruit on the ground, the blueberries would ripen. We would eat that because we all have a sweet tooth. That triggered insulin production. We made body fat, and we survived through the winter. It's a great mechanism. But now people are storing body fat for the winter that never comes based upon the mechanism of eating carbs. It's not the fat. That was the big argument in Grain Brain. Eat fat, and you'd be healthy. Your brain is 70% fat, not just yours. So you're not. I'm not calling you a fathead here, but your brain needs fat to build neurons, to make neurons. The membranes of your cells that allow one cell to communicate with the next cell are made of fat.
So what else is hurting brain health?
The other really important factor, if they're bullet points, and maybe there'll be 3, here's number 2, is aerobic exercise. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Turns out that as a gene expression modifier, in other words, changing your gene expression, who knew? You can change your life code. Aerobic exercise causes your genome to make a chemical called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, which is growth hormone for your brain. You can grow new brain cells, and as opposed to having a shrinking hippocampus, your brain's memory center. Why did I point to myself? I forgot. When it comes to your brain's memory center, size matters. You can increase the size of your hippocampus by aerobically exercising. It's been proven at the University of Pittsburgh. Dr. Kirk Erickson has published some amazing studies on humans after 2 years of aerobic. They took a break. They didn't exercise for 2 years. 20 minutes a day, 7 days a week. Your hippocampus grows. You improve memory function. There's no pharmaceutical that will do that for you.
Talk to me about stress, brain health.
So stress and brain health, very important thing to realize. You know, when you're stressed chronically or you experience an acute stress, which is severe, what is the chemical that your body makes? The stress hormone, which is cortisol. And cortisol is directly toxic to your brain cells that live in the hippocampus. It kills off your memory brain cells. Now, as we look at the brain through the lens of the microbiome, we realize that this chemical cortisol increases gut permeability as well, and also changes the array, the diversity of the bacteria and other organisms that live within the gut. So we're just beginning to understand this beautiful dance that happens between the health of the gut and the health of the brain. And I'm going to say that amongst my neurology colleagues, it's a bit difficult to grasp that there's something going on south of the foramen magnum that has a very important role to play in the function of the brain.
What's your recipe for optimal brain health?
The most healing experience we have in our lives is gratitude. And compassion and forgiveness are on that list as well. Now, from the nuts and bolts day-to-day activity, I'd say that sugar elimination, carb elimination, getting back a lot of fiber and healthful fat into your diet is fundamental, and aerobic exercise. These are the keys.
Amen. Thank you so
Amen.
much, Dr.
Thank you.
Perlmutter. Thank you. Thank you. You were great.